is Daf Lamed Ches. We're continuing the laws of Shavuos HaPikadon, right? I said I deposited something by you, and you swear you didn't, or I said you found an object of mine, you stole something from me, I lent you something, and you swear constantly you didn't, and then later you admit that you swore falsely, so you have to pay back the principal, the penalty, as well as a fifth, which is a quarter, and a carbon asham. So we're up to the very top of the page of Lamed Ches. Says the Gemara. Shavuos HaPikadon Ketzad. What's considered Shavuos HaPikadon? 10 li Pikadon sheyesh biyodcha. I'm demanding back my deposit. Tanabon. We learned in a brisa. So in the Mishnah, we already learned yesterday in the Mishnah, if he asks him for a number of things. If he asks him for a number of things, and then he says, he asks him for let's say wheat, barley, spelt, or he asks him for stolen items, borrowed, and he just didn't make one's denial, and then it turned out to be as a full shvur, he just brings one carbon. But if he itemizes each one, he says, no, I did not steal, I did not borrow, and each one, then you bring a carbon for each one. And in the expression of the Mishnah he says, and this, and this, and this. So he says, so it's considered like number of shvuos. So we're going to have an argument. Do you have to actually use the prefix of and, or you just itemize it without the prefix of and? So let's see the Gemara. Start by learned. Klal, what's considered general denial? So see what it is. No matter what the plaintiff was asking for, but if I make one denial, it's one carbon. Prat, but if I make individual denials, then I have to pay. And then I admit that I made a full shvur. It's as if you made individual shvuos, and each one you have to compensate, pay. Rabbi Yehuda says, and this is what we're going to try to understand, the dispute between Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he says shvua loylach, or shvua not you, and then he says, Villalach, and not to you. Villalach, and not to you. In other words, 5 people came over and each one claimed. If he has one denial, I didn't take from anyone, there's only one shvur. But if he says, not you, and not you, and not you, sounds like he says, and. I'll call chayv, I'll call achavachas. He's chayv on each one. In other words, if there were 5 people, he's chayv 5 times for swearing false, if he itemized each one. Rabbi Yehuda clearly used the word and, as if to say and, it means a new shvur for each one. What Rameir holds, we'll soon see. That's the dispute between Shmuel and Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Lezer said this is like a Mishnah. When you chayv, only if you end off, you cap off your statement with the word shavu at the end. Then you chayv for each one. You have to reiterate the word shavu. Rabbi Shimon says not enough to reiterate the word shavu at the end. Every single person you have to say shavu loylach shavu loylach. You have to spell out shavu to each one of you. Now, we're going to have 2 ways of understanding. So what does Rameir hold? Rabbi Yehuda, and what's Rabbi Yehuda hold? Rabbi Yehuda clearly says when you say and, that means you're carrying over the shvur to each individual person. What does Rameir hold? Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel, they both hold the opposite of each other. So Rabbi Yehuda clearly says only if you said, I did not take from you, and I did not take from you, and I did not take from you. So it's like 3 shvurs. But if I would have said according to Rabbi Yehuda, I did not take from you, that's considered one general shvur. That's called a klal. The prat is only if you say and. And Rameh will hold exactly the opposite. Rameh would hold, I swear I did not take from you, and from you, and from you. There's only one shvur. There's only one shvur. It's a general. But if I say, I swear I did not take from you, that's considered 3 different shvurs. So the Gemara says here, that which Rameh considers a general one, it's only one shvur. According to Yehuda, that's considered a prat. That's considered individual. And klolish Rabbi Yehuda holds that the general is if you say without the word and, you, that's a clause like one shvur. Prat made holds that's considered individual. That's the view of. So they hold opposite each other. Rabbi Yechon says no. Rabbi Yechon says that one they agree and one they dispute. Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi doesn't argue with Rabbi Yehuda when you say that if you say and, it's each is an individual, each is a separate shvur. Where they argue is you missed out the word and. He just says you. That's where Rabbi Yehuda argues. But and, everyone agrees is considered individual shvuos. Rabbi Yechon, everyone agrees. But and you, shehu prat. It's considered individual. Their dispute is you didn't say the word and, just you. How do we treat that? Rabbi Yehuda says you is considered a general shvur. It's only one, and Rameir holds no. That's also individual. Rameir prat, it's individual. Yehuda meklal. So the Gemara says, so according to the mayor, when do you ever have a cloud? Whether he said and you, whether he say just you, is considered a prat, individual shvuas. Yet the Mishnah, the mayor himself says, but if you make a general denial, it's only one shvua. What's considered general denial? The Ezu close mayor. What's a general denial? Shvua she'ein lechem biyadi. All he says is, I swear I have nothing of yours by me, without saying you. That's considered a general shvua, one shvua, and you bring carbon. What exactly is the basis of the argument in Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan? Shmuel dayik me Braisa. Shmuel emphasis is on the Braisa because the Braisa is more delineates further than the Mishnah, and Rabbi Yochanan basically learns it from the Mishnah. Dayik must listen. The Gemara explains. Shmuel dying right. Shmuel proves from the Braisa. But come, but what's Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda says vil loylach prat. Rabbi Yehuda says that and not you. And you. Notice, I did not take from you and from you. Rabbi Yehuda says that's considered prat. Now, if he says and it's not a prat, obviously he's arguing. That means that made holds that it's considered a klal. Not like Rabbi Yochanan says that everyone agrees. And if everyone agrees, then why does Rabbi Yehuda talk about that? So he says the fact that Rabbi Yehuda only discusses and means that made holds that and is considered a klal. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, that's a prat. He must have heard a made on klal. It must be a made hold is considered general denial. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, prat it's considered individual denial. So clearly they're arguing in the case of even in the case of and. And Rabbi Yochanan holds that everyone agrees on and. So what's Rabbi Yochanan learn? No. What's the big deal? Rabbi Yehuda is saying that I only agree with you when it comes to and, but I don't agree with you when it says you. You say it's prat, I say that's klal. That's what Rabbi Yochanan is saying, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, when you say and, I agree with you, that's considered a prat. But the loylach without the and, just you, that's considered a general thing. I don't agree with you, and that's only one shvur. I argue with you. Says the Gemara, Shmuel counters and says, what are you talking about? So why would Rabbi Yochanan only talk about where he agrees with Rameir? The way he normally argue is you talk about that which we argue with each other. Rabbi Yochanan, he said to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda should have said, if you just say you, that's called a clown. Instead of saying and, that's a prat. But you're telling me that everyone agrees with that. Why would you talk about what we agree on? That's not how you argue. So Rabbi Shmuel says, why talk about what you argue? You should have talked about why talk about what you agree? You should have mentioned what he argued. You. Okay, so that's the Shmuel's raya, that Rabbi Yehuda is arguing that Rameir holds and is nothing, is considered a general, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's considered a prat, and therefore must be that. So where's the prat according to Rameir? When you say you according to Rameir, that's called a prat. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not. It's a klal. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan says no, they all agree by and they only argue in the case of you. Dayik memastis. His proof is the Mishnah. To come, Rabbi says Shavuos she'ein lechem biyadi. I swear that the Shavuos, I swear she'ein lechem biyadi, that I have nothing of yours. And Rabbi seems to be saying now. It doesn't mention Rabbi's name in the Mishnah, but a stam Mishnah is usually Rabbi. If it's nameless, it's anonymous. We say who is it? It's Rabbi. So the Mishnah says. What do you call it? If it says Shur, that's considered a cloud. Miklal. And anything more specific than that, Miklal, according to the mayor, who's anonymous author of our Mishnah, the Veloilach, if you would have broken it down and started talking directly to the people, Protab is also a prat. That if he says and not you, is considered a prat. That means the very mayor holds that even and is also considered a prat. That's how I know that everyone agrees when it comes to and. Because if you can tell me that a mayor holds that not only if you just say it's not true, I have nobody's, but even if he spelled it out and said I don't have yours and I don't have yours and I don't have yours, and you're telling me that's considered a klal, then that would be a much greater chiddush. Shouldn't the Mishnah have then said that? Then the anonymous author of the Mishnah should have said that if he says not you and not you, it's only one denial. That would have been a much bigger chiddush. Why just say I don't have anybody's? So if you could think like Shmuel, that if he says and is also considered a general denial, why is the Mishnah teacher I have nothing of yours? Tell you bigger chiddush. That even though he itemized each one because it's and it's considered one general shvur, is koshkin shvur shein lechem biyadi. Surely shvur that I don't have in my hand. Shmuel says. And Shmuel said, no, that's not a question. You know why it says general? That's exactly what the Mishnah is saying. If you say and not you, it's just tantamount to saying I have nobodies. And therefore it's one shvua. The Mishnah is explaining why it's considered general denial. As if he's saying I have nothing of yours. And therefore, someone asked a question. It says clearly in the Mishnah, loylach, viloylach. It says in the Mishnah here that he says loylach, viloylach. It says and. It says the Gemara. It says clearly that viloylach and viloylach is considered a prat. You're telling me the author of our Mishnah is a mayor. So it almost doesn't seem clearly from here that a mayor holds an and is also considered individual. So you, Rabbi Shmuel, said that a mayor holds that if you say and because in the example of the Mishnah, what's a prat? What does the Mishnah say? The same anonymous Tana, which we're assuming is a mayor. It says there, if he says Shavuos she'ein loch b'yodi villoilach is chayiv. Clearly that and is considered individual. What do you tell me, Shmuel, that according to a mayor, and is considered general? So Rabbi Shmuel answers, amend the Mishnah. He said, Tani loilach, take off all the verbs, take off all the ands. Toshma coming here. Well, let's go to the next line of Mishnah. Same thing. It keeps on saying and saying that's individual. According to you, since it's a Meir, the author, it should have said without the ands. Toshma tenly says later in the Mishnah, Pekod and give me back my deposit. Shumas you have my loan, Begezel, what you stole from me, Vaved and the lost object. It says clearly and we say you got to bring 4 chaptois because that's individual. But you're saying and is considered one general denial. Says you're right. Tani. Amend the Mishnah to Shumaziyad Gezel, remove all the ands, the conjunctional and remove that. Toshma, continue reading the Mishnah further. Tenli chitin sa'odik, because I give back my wheat, my barley, and my spelt. And then he answers back, not this, and not this. It's a bunch of ands, and it's considered like 3 different shvuos. He said again, amend the Mishnah. Tani sa'odik kusma. The Gemara says, this is a limit how many amendments you can make. So the Gemara asks, but so many mistakes. It's one thing I can understand. One line is a mistake. It says and, it shouldn't have said and. But every single time we go through another case, continues saying and you're telling me that and is considered general denial. It means take off all the ands. It can't be. The Gemara said, you're right. He said the author of our Mishnah, even though it's anonymous, is not Reb Meir. You know who it is? Hamani Rebbe. It's Rebbe. What's the story of Rebbe? In the Gemara's Vachim, we'll learn that if a kohen shechts an animal and has in mind the wrong date, thinking that you can eat this for 3 days when all you can eat for 2 days, or 2 days when you can only eat 1 day, that's called pigul. Then you're not allowed to eat the animal anymore, and if you're eating it, even though you're eating it within the right time, you're chayiv kares. Then you have, that's called chutzlas manai. And then you have chutzlas mekayim. If you had in mind to eat in Yerushalayim when actually this carbon had to be eaten only inside the Beis Hamikdash, the animal is possible. You don't get kares if you eat it, but you're not allowed to eat it either. And the din is that if you have more than one machshava at the time, when you were shechting the animal, if you had more than one machshava at the time, it ruins the entire animal. According to Chachamim, it makes no difference if you had the machshava of chutzla mekayim before chutzlas manai or chutzlas manai. If you have 2 machshavas, then it completely passes the animal, and there's no kares involved in it because one cancels the other. But you're not allowed to eat it. Comes along, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it depends which one is first. Whichever is first is the one that's chal. If the first thought you had was chutzlas manai, then the animal became pigul. It doesn't matter that afterwards you had chutzla mekayim. But the vice versa. If you had first chutzla mekayim, then afterwards chutzlas manai, it's not, you don't get kares because chutzla mekayim came first. So comes along, Rebbe and says that if you have to have separate thoughts. So therefore the first one is the one that is conferred on the animal. The one is chal. So Rebbe says that if you said, it makes no difference if you said and, chutzla mismane and chutzla mekayim, or you said chutzla mekayim and chutzla mismane, or you don't have the word and. It's considered like 2 disparate thoughts, like individual. So Rebbe holds there's no difference if you say and, or if you don't say and that's this Mishnah here. Says the Gemara. So who is it? It's Rebbe. Amar loishna kizayis. I don't care if we say kizayis pigul chutzlas manai chutzlas mekayim without the and. Or loishna kizayis prota, but all considered individuals. So our mission when it says and is Rebbe, not Rameir. According to Shmuel, Rameir holds if you say and, it becomes like one generic denial. So only if you omit the and, just say you, or this, that we say it's individual. Toshma coming here, made today. When I ask a question, let me bring up right from Meir's words himself. Later on in the Mishnah, Meir says, I feel the chito soid with kasemes, even if it's, let's say, wheat and barley and spelt. Clearly, Meir says the word and yet he says, you're chayiv for individual. So Shmuel says to me, oh, it's only one line. I can amend here. Take off all the errands. One line, you agree with me, you can amend. Let's amend it. Anyway, what's the chiddush? What's the chiddush made it? Even though you said only individual wheat, it could be plural as well. In other words, it has to be a value of a pruta before the shvua kicks in. That shvua is a fekadni yechayiv. So if you talk about individual wheat, so what am I admitting to, or what am I denying? Individual wheat, there's no pruta here. So we're saying here that even though you said the word individual wheat, you mean the species of wheat. But if you're talking about a value, a whole bunch of bushels of wheat, that's worth more than a pruta. That's what the chiddush are made. That even though you said it in individual expression, lashon yachid, it includes lashon rabim as well. Second one, further tell you because give me back to me my deposit, my loan, my stolen item, my lost object. Tenly chitin v'sa'idin. Let's say if the plaintiff asks, give me back my wheat and my barley. It doesn't have to be a pruta of the wheat or a pruta of the barley. If between the wheat and the barley, both are part of my claim, it equals the pruta, it's considered a valid claim. Pligi brothers, an interesting argument. Remember, first, you say you have the general denial, and then you go into individuals. So, do we? Are you chayiv also for the general denial? If I say, I don't know what you're talking about, I have nothing of yours, not yours, not yours, not yours. Do we say it's considered as a klali? There's one shvua that you compensate for because you made a klal plus, and you got to bring in carbon ashram, and then you have the pratim as well, or the pratim overtake the klal. There's no klal anymore. All we focus on now is individual pratim. So there's an argument. But only chayiv for an individual, the wheat, the barley, the spelt. But you're not chayiv for the general thing, saying I don't have anything. When he says ein lo b'yadi klum, he said, wait a minute, ein lo b'yadi klum. Spell it out, not wheat, the barley, not thing. Do we say, well, there's actually 4 shvuas here? First, he said I have nothing. In other words, do we say that the klal is a separate shvu and then you have 3 other shvuas, chitin, sorin, kusmin, or do we say that the chitin, sorin, kusmin is actually explaining what do you mean ein lach b'yadi klum? So it's really only 3 shvuas here, not 4, and that's a machlekes. One of them says aprati mechayi, but akloli la mechayi. And for the general thing ein lach b'yadi klum, because all you're doing is explaining what you meant by ein lach b'yadi. So there's only 3 shvuas here, and the chadom akloli la mechayi. No, there's a general and there's individual. But the mother, but Tony, Rabchi said, had he come chomesh. Yesterday, chatois, the total of 50 chatois. In the case of the mission, where 5 people come and claim, hey, you took me wheat, barley, and spelt. 5 times 3 is 15. You got to bring 15 carbonis. The imisa, and if you're right, esimab, if you're right, 20. Because in addition to the individual, you also have the general. So there should be 20 carbonis. So the more high ton of this time, the prati kochoshiv, the kloli like a choshiv. This time is only focusing on the individual. That's the chiddush. But of course, you have to bring a carbon for the kloli as well. But it's not focusing on it. So the more another brayso, he says clearly there's 20, which means clearly he holds that there is the 3 of the prat and plus the 1 of the klal. So that resolves your question. It doesn't resolve either because he's talking about a different case. That case is apikadon utsumas yad the gezloved is demanding 4 things. He's saying you have my deposit, you have my loan, you have my stolen item, and you found something in mine. So and there are 5 people. So 5 times 4 is 20, and we don't talk about the cloud. No proof one way or another. But asked another question. 5 people claiming from him, and they said to him, 10 loan to give it return to us, because now deposit to Mashar our loan, Yezel Aved is stolen an object, a lost object. Sheyesh loan to be have of ours. And this is what he said to them. When he looked at one of them, he said, I swear. I don't have by me at all. And then he itemized it. I don't have a pekadon, I don't have tumas yad, I don't have gezer. He highlights each one individually. But then he says, "V'loylach and not you, v'loylach and not you, v'loylach and not you." Now, do we say as if he's reiterating all 4 things again and again and again? So therefore, it's numerous shavuos, 5 times 4. Or do we say to the one that he itemized to, that's 4? For all the other ones, it's only 1 shavua. Not you is a general shavua, a general denial. The chayiv only for the other ones. Is the chayiv only 1 general shua, or we say v'loylach means also not just the general. I don't have any of yours, but each individual item that I highlighted applies to them as well. Toshma coming in. He said, that's 20 kabbanis. Now, hey, what are we talking about? Either Parish. If it's talking about a case that he said to each one, I don't have your Pekod and I don't have your Trimaziyada. What's the Chiddush of here? He tells us we know how to count. Four kabbanis times 5. Multiple 5 is 20. Rav Chim and Yonos Lashmin come tell you how to count. Elallah, isn't he talking about the loy part? The chiddush of is that you didn't spell it out. You said, and not you, and not you. Vishmamena pratav. The chiddush of is that's considered as if you also itemize each one, and it's 5 times 4. Talking about it further, on Nasta, we have an argument in the mission of Shimon Chamim. If he says, on Nasta, Patisas, Biti, you raped or you sued my daughter, and there's a knas involved. And by knas we say moide be knas potter, and therefore by knas we say that the shvua didn't really is no shvua. There's no shvuas what do you call it, pekadon when it comes to knas, because he can get out of it, so therefore there's no shvuas because my knas. So, but the thing is, there's also a monetary payment. There's also boishes, shame, pagam. It's monetary because you have to evaluate each woman accordingly and know who the perpetrator was and who she is, her stature. So Chachamim say there's money involved there. Of course, there's shvuas of pekadon if you swore false. And Rabbi Shimon says we only focus on the knas. Why? In my time, what's the logic of Shimon? Because you know why? Because really, what he's focusing on is the knas. Give me the $50 of knas. Why? Why is he only focusing on the knas with other payments as well? Omar Rava says Rava. Marshal that Rab Shimon you know what you compare Rab Shimon to? La'adam, a person says a friend. Tenli chitin sa'ele kusmin. You have my different kinds of grains. Omar, the guy says Shavua. I swear, she'ein lach biyadi chitin. I don't have any of your wheat. All we discussed, wheat is the most significant of all the different grains. And the response is, I swear, I don't have any of your wheat. And we find the chitun de Leslie. So Rava says, what do we find? We find the taka doesn't have wheat. But the other two, he does have. But he does have. But since in his shvua, he only mentioned wheat, so the potter, he is potter. He said, I swear I don't have wheat. The taka doesn't have wheat. He has barley, but he didn't talk about it. So when he swore correctly, and that's why he's not liable. So Abai says to Rabbi, I don't understand what your marshal is. Me, what are you comparing? You asked me for wheat and barley and spelt, and I all denied was wheat. I didn't deny the other two. And it turned out to be I was telling the truth. So what's the problem? I didn't respond at all regarding the other two claims. So of course you don't bring a carbon. In fact, you didn't lie. Over here, when you say that you seduced my daughter, I'm not just asking for knas. I'm asking for knas, for shame, and for pagam. Because now she has a defect. She's no longer a virgin. She no longer gets $200 and the don't gets $100. So he's asking for all those claims. And when you deny that it happened, you're denying all 3 of them. So of course you should be liable. There's money involved. What's Rab Shimon? If you want to give an example, I'll give you an analogy for Rab Shimon as follows. Give him all 3 grains. You have a mind. He said, I swear I have nothing. Then we found out that he doesn't have any wheat. But he said, I have nothing. Turned out to be that wheaty taka didn't have, but they didn't have the barley and the spelt. In that case, you swore false. So what's the logic of Shimon? The Ravin came along, said, Shimon says, you know what? He's actually only claiming the knas. Rab Shimon holds that you're only claiming the knas. You know why? And Bais Begam, you have to bring in experts to work out the value, get a valuer. It takes a long time. You need the cash straight away. So you focus on the knas, in fact, because knas is fixed. The trader says $50. You know exactly how much you're getting paid. It has to happen straight away. So since you're strapped for cash, that's what you're asking for. So according to Shimon, all you're asking for is a knas. There's no shavuos pekadon by knas. Knas utavei v'lei Bais Begam. The Dibbe Chacham say that you're not only focusing on the knas, there's different versions whether he's saying also the Bais Begam or only the Bais Begam, only that. And what's the argument? Why does Rab Shimon say you're only focusing on the knas, and why does Chacham say you're focusing on the monetary side? The Micah Miflagi. If you have a fixed amount, $50, you'll go in, you get your money straight away. That's all you're demanding. And rather than getting evaluations, who knows how long it'll take? It's a headache. Not interested. And the Rabban hold Chacham say no. It's a risk to ask only for the knas. Because you know what happens if he comes in straight away before the agent come and he says yes, I admit it happened. Then he walks away free. But if he admits that it happened and I'm claiming the boish, the shame, and the defect, I'm still entitled to that. And therefore, I'm not going to take a risk and focus on something that could be I won't even get paid. If I tell the This finishes the Pedig and Shavuos. Because now goes the next Pedig, the next half, not next half, the next last section of Shavuos, and that is the last 10 blot, Shavuos Hadayonim. What exactly is Shavuos Hadayonim? So there's an argument that the Shayna Hadayonim is only the Moedah B'Mixus is a Shavuot from there's only a few Shavuos in the Torah. One is if you ask me for $100 and I make a partial admission, I only owe you 50. So the Torah says pay the 50 and swear on the balance. If I said we hadn't more in the first payday of dollar, if I said Halech, here, take the money. So then if I say Halech, take I owe you only $50, here, take it. The moment I say Halech, we have the machlekes. But at the moment of Chid says, but you say Halech according to one opinion, here's the money, then it's no longer part of the claim. All you're claiming from me is 50, and then I'm denying the whole 50. Or do we say that Halech is still considered Moedah B'Mixus? But Moedah B'Mixus is a shvuah in the Torah. We also have a shvuah of Eid Echad. A single aid comes in and demands $100 for the guy. You have to swear, counter that. That's a shvuah Eid Echad. So Shvuah we had before. So Shavuos Eid Echad or Shavuos Shemin is even though it might be considered Shavuos Hadayonim, here we're focusing only on Moedah B'Mixus at the moment. It says the Mishnah, Shavuos Hadayonim is like this: Hatayna Shtei Kesef. The minimum taina, the claim has to be 2 silver coins. V'haido, and the admission is shava pruta. The minimum admission has to be the value of a pruta. Machlekes Rav and Shmuel whether the shava pruta is on top of the 2 silver coins or it's included. We'll see more later. Then he said, what happens if you're making one claim and I'm responding, I owe you, but not what you claim, something else altogether. Then potter, because on what you're asking for, I'm not admitting it all, I'm totally denying. And therefore I don't have to swear, and it's not called a Moedah B'Mixus. Whether you have to pay what I admit or not, we'll see in machlekes later as well. Because you're asking me for wheat and I say I owe you barley. So I'm not Moedah B'Mixus because you asked for wheat. Right, if you ask for wheat, so therefore I'm totally denying the wheat, but I'm made the barley. Doesn't mean, but you're not asking me for barley. Is it considered as if you're making me, I owe you nothing, or I still have to pay you the barley? We'll discuss that another time. Talking about the Mishnah further, the case, you owe me 2 silver coins. What happens if he says, you owe me 2 silver coins on a pruta? And he says, pruta is copper and kesef is silver. All I owe you is the copper coin, chayv. That's called Moedah B'Mixus because it's part of one claim, and I'm admitting 2 part of it. So Moedah B'Mixus. He says, you owe me $100. I owe you nothing. Potter. I'm a clay for hakal. I'm potter. I'm totally denying it. You proved I owe you. But money I only owe you 50. Then you're a chai. That's called Moedah B'Mixus. But what about in the following case? Your father owes me. You said you owe my father $100, and he says, no, I only owe him 50. It's called Moedah B'Mixus. But over here is potter. You know why he's potter? Because if he wanted, he could have said, "What are you talking about? I owe your father nothing." How in the world is the son going to prove that he owes money? He doesn't really know what happened, doesn't know who saw, he doesn't have the details. So this person, by admitting to 50 out of the 100, is actually being generous. He's like a Meishiv Aveda. I return to your loss. If I return to your lost object, hey, it was $100 in the wallet. It's only 50 now. I don't have to swear because otherwise people will stop being nice guys. Why should I get into trouble? Who cares? I don't need it. So therefore, Patim Neshu Kamesha Aveda is doing you a favor, returning Aveda. What happens? Monthly, $100 in front of 2 witnesses. Yeah, in front of 2 witnesses, I admit, yes, I owe you $100. The following day, you come over to me, truly, pay me. And I said, the Satilach, I already paid you. Patim. Because just because Adim know that I owe you the money, it doesn't mean I have to pay in front of witnesses. I can pay back. Hamal be'edim ain't tzarich l'for be'edim. So I pay you back without witnesses. But if I deny, ain't lach b'yadi, I don't be talking about, I owe you nothing, then chayiv. Because yesterday you admitted. And the moment you admitted that you owe the money, now you can't contradict it. What about money li b'yadcha? You owe me $100, yes. And then I tell you in a condition, Al titnu li ela be'edim. Don't pay me back only from witnesses, and you agree. The following day, he said to him, Tno li, pay me, and I tell you, Nasativ lach, I gave you privately. Chayiv. We made a deal, you have to give only from edim. What about litra zav, a liter of gold, which is a sizable amount? Yeshli biyadcha, a liter of gold, you owe me. And he says back, Ein lach biyadi, el a liter kesef, it's only a liter of silver, which is a lot less. A liter is like a mana. And the silver is only 25 silver coins equal 1 gold coin, and he's claiming a liter of gold. It's one kind, and he's admitting a liter of kesef. Somebody mixes. He's potter. Why is he potter? Because it's not the same thing. You're asking for gold, and I'm talking to you about silver. So what you're asking for, I'm completely denying. You never gave me gold, and what I'm made, you never asked me for. Dinners of you owe me a golden dinner. He says, you owe me a golden coin. money. And I'm admitting to a dinar of silver, and today says pundi, different kinds of coins, or upruta chayiv. Why? Because here you're not asking me for the commodity, here you're asking me for the value. This is now a currency. You're not talking, even though it's a golden dollar or a silver half dollar, but we're talking about currency. I'm by the mixes. They're both all currency, and therefore it's considered by the mixes. Mine 30 saw mine is sitting by you, and he goes back and says, Ella Lasach kidneys. Lasach is a half a card, 15 saw. But you asked for grains, and I'm telling you I have legumes. Different brand altogether. So I'm denying what you asked for, and I'm admitting something totally different. Again, I definitely don't have to pay what you asked for. Machlek is whether I have to pay what I'm admitting to you because you're not asking for it. Potter. What about Koi paid? The guy says, I gave you a 30 saw of fruits. But then he said, I have legumes. Legumes can be considered part of the Paris category, and therefore it's considered by the mixes. Kidneys can be included payers. What about tonu chitin? You asked me for wheat, and I admitted to barley. Potter, you are potter. And when Gamliel holds, you are chayiv. Now, why did Gamliel hold you chayiv? Because the logic of Gamliel is that we don't look at the Rebbe explains in the Sikha. They're arguing. If you look at kamus, you look at echos. You look at the item itself, or you look at what it represents. If you look at the item itself, you're asking me for wheat, and I'm telling you about barley. But Rabbi Gamliel says no. We don't look at the item. We look at the quality of the item. We look at the echos. And the echos, you ask me for a value of wheat, and I'm giving you a value of barley. So it's the value of barley is within what you're asking for. So the mix is in chayiv. And the other makes a holy say different arguments in the Gemara where I'm going to argue about this very concept principle. Do we focus on the kamus or do we focus on the echos? Somebody demands from his friend Bekadishem in barrels of oil, and he admits kankanim, just barrels. Adman says, you asked me for a barrel and oil, and he's responding with a barrel, so the mixes. And if it's a mixes, you're chayiv. I'm admitting these to the barrels. However, Chacham say ein hoida memina taina. The Chacham say no. That you focus mainly on the oil, and we'll see more later. Focus mainly on the oil, and I'm answering your barrels. We're talking about two different things. It's not hoida mixes. In this case, I like what Adman says, because here it seems quite evident we're talking about. He's asking for both the barrels and the oil, and you're admitting to part. We'll see later. I asked you, remember, you don't swear on karka. We had before, you don't swear. We've learned klal or prata klal, so you don't swear on karka, you don't swear on avodim, you don't swear on shtar. So what happens if I claim from you kalim, vessels, which you would have to, if you admit it, I asked for 3, you admitted to 2, you have to be made to mix it, you have to swear. But I asked you for kalim and the property of land, a sliver of property, a land that you took from me. The hoide be kalim, you admit to kalim. The koffer bekakois, completely denying a kois. Well, there's no way to mix it, right? There's no way to mix it because I admit totally to the kalim and I totally deny the karka. Big kakois. If you ask me for property, the koffer bekalim. Let's say I'm made in the karka, but I'm totally kois for the kalim again, potter, because karka you don't swear, and I'm kois from the kalim. What about hoide b'mixes kakois? You ask me for 2 properties and kalim, and I'm made it to one of the properties. Well, again, the trigger would be the made b'mixes in the property, but you don't swear property. But if mixes hakalim, if I was made, you asked me for karka and kalim, and you asked me for 3 kalim, I'm made it 2. So I'm a made mixes in the kalim. Once I'm a made mixes in the kalim, I have to swear. We have a concept called gilgul shvua. We learn from Saita, amen, amen. Once you have a shvua, you can heap on other shvuas. So therefore, I now have to swear on the karka as well. Chayiv. Why? Property which is portable brings on a shvua onto property. Once you're swearing on the portable property, on the metaltlin, Gilgal, I can heap on it other shvuos, including items which normally you wouldn't swear, but now that I'm swearing anyway, add another one. And you struggle to swear it. Einish boy on tiny have a claim you don't swear. We don't take them seriously in that sense. Ein mashbin the cotton, you never make a cotton swear because maybe he doesn't really know. Avonish boy lick cotton heggish, but you do swear sometimes 2 or cotton more later, and for heggish. So what exactly happens by a shvur? You make Mashur Agatreda says, it says in the Pasuk that Avram said to Eliezer, I want you to go out there and I want you to swear. And he said, I'm making you swear by Hashem Elokei Shemayim. I'm making you swear in Hashem. So you're using Hashem's name, and that you shouldn't take any girls from nice craft from me. Ravina said, you're telling me the only name you can use is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That follows the view of Reb Chanina Baridi, which we had a few days ago, that he said that Shavuos Daf is only if you use Hashem's name. Like the Chacham, say all 7 names of Hashem, She'ein Mechakin, Lakim, Kel, Shakai, Tzvakas. No, only Hashem. That follows Chanina Baridi, Alma Bin and Shem Hamayuchad. You need the only name that the designate of Hashem, which, because in this passage it says, Vayachab Hashem. Amalei, he said back to him, no. It sounds like me, you're only talking like Hanina. He said, no, I feel him Rabbanan. The Amma Bikini. He said, no, you can say Hashem or all the 7 names that are you're not allowed to erase. So what do you learn from Avraham Avinu? The Navkamina, what we learn from Avraham Avinu is the Torah Latfusa Chefze B'Yoder. You have to, when you make a Shvuah, you have to, when Rav said Shvuah Amur B'Toida, he meant you have, just like Avram, you had to hold on to something. Eliezer held on to the bris milah of Avram. As the Chassidus explained, that was the only thing that was holy then. But those others could not take Gashmis and make it holy, but prior to Matan Torah. There was this divide between the two, this big gulf. And Matan Torah, Hashem came down the mountain, and therefore he bridged and he merged together, fused together Gashmis and Ruchnis, that he didn't have the power to make things holy. But prior to that, he couldn't, except bris milah, because that was the first mitzvah. So Eliezer had to hold on to Avram bris milah when he made the Shvuah. So every time you make a Shvuah, you have to hold on to an object. Like Rabba says, Hi Dain, any judge, any judge who said, I swear in the name of Hashem, or he makes you swear in the name of Hashem, but he doesn't give you a sefer Torah to hold, is Nasik Misha Torah. Misha has no idea what he's talking about. The Chayz we had in Rosh Hashanah, that if you make such an obvious mistake, you have to redo it. But the Papa says, Hi Daina, the Papa that made another din. Hi Dana, the Ashbet film. If you don't use the sefer Torah, you should film Nasik Misha Torah. Misha also a mistake. The Chayz. So the Gemara, but that's wrong. Hilchas HaKavos like Rabbi that you have to hold on to an object. But let's Hilchas HaKavos Papa. The Papa is wrong. You don't have to dafke be a sefer Torah. Ideally, sefer Torah, but it doesn't have to be. It can be any chefza of a mitzvah. Hilchas, we hold on to a Bible when you make a shvuah. It could be a tefillin, as the Gemara says here. Hilchas HaKavos Rabbi the lokach chefza b'yadek. If you don't hold the chayf in your hand, it's not a valid shvuah. But let's Hilchas HaKavos Papa. The lokach chefza, as long as you're holding a holy object, that makes it much more serious and stern, and therefore you'll take it seriously. That's good enough. Shvuah, you have to generally stand, but a Talmud Chacham can sit. Miyushiv. Shvuah generally sefer Torah. Ideally, you take out a sefer Torah, or but Talmud Chacham lichatchila b'tefillin. Talmud Chacham lichatchila can use film. Rashi, interesting, says, and we don't normally have Rashi commenting like this, but Rashi says, in my generation, we stopped doing these kind of shvuahs, taking out a sefer Torah because it's too serious. It's too serious, and because you need 10 people or that, and we don't want that to happen. Even though other Rishonim argue, they still did it. If you want to intimidate someone, make sure that they don't lie, and to take a shvuah seriously, they would take out a sefer Torah and do the whole thing. So about it further. That for the Yonim has to be any language that you understand. You need to make sure that you understand what you're swearing. You should tell him this. We intimidate the guy. We tell him how you should know. The entire world was trembling. Hashem said the third commandment: don't swear in His name, in vain. The entire world began to tremble more than Anochi Hashem Lekecha and all these other dibris. So we're trying to tell the guy, make sure you behave. All Hashem will forgive you. Do tshuva. Of the kan number in this passage it says lo yenake. Hashem will not forgive you if you use His name in vain. All the Vedas, you commit a sin, you get punished. Of the kan mi menu umimishpachli. Here, not just from yourself, but also your family. Shenema. So the passage, al titin as picha lachti. Don't go ahead and let your mouth go ahead and run away and sin as besarcha, because you're going to ruin your flesh. And whose flesh? Flesh means not just you personally, but it means your family. How do I know that? Shenemar. So there's a pasuk. It says, make sure that you feed the poor and the downtrodden. And it says here, if you see someone naked, make sure you clothe them. Do not avoid or conceal yourself, or do not avoid helping out your psar. I'm talking about your family. So it's talking about you're going to harm your family. Furthermore, this is what we tell the guy before he swears. All of it is going to punish you. It can be menu, not just your family, but the entire world that suffers. Shneimah says, Allah, if you swear the chachas, you deny, but it's and you're a murderer, and so on and so forth. It says here that everyone gets hurt. The Ema says the Gemara, maybe add the other. Maybe it's only if you do all of these sins together, the entire world suffers. You cannot say that. Why not? The Chsibet says, it says in the pasuk, because of the sin. It highlights which one? Because of the false shvuah. Because of the false shvuah, the entire world gets affected. Uksiva, and it says in the pasuk, another pasuk, Al Kain te'ochel haaretz. Therefore, the world will be consumed. Umlau, kol yoshba, everybody will be affected, and all the animals and so on and so forth. The whole aveda shebetayda, all aveda tayda, im yesh lo schus tayda, all avedas in the Torah, if you have any merits, Torah. All avedas in the Torah, if you have a schus Torah, that they are going to what do you call? Anyway, if you have a schus, we're going to, prevent you from getting punished and so on. Shnayim will delay it by 2 or 3 generations. And we had more sake as well. The Torah mitzvah, saves you. Or they can. We don't delay anything. You swear false, we get punished in 8 ways. It says in the pasuk, we'll take you out. Said Hashem. You'll go to Beis Hanegev, Beis Hanishba, B'Shmi L'Shaka. Those people swear false. The Lana B'Tei, you will sleep in his house. He will consume, will destroy your stones and your wood. I'd say, see it as out straight away. So now we translate the pasuk. It will take you out straight away. You're not going to wait a generation or two. Will come to the house of the Ganef. Somebody who deceives people. And you know that person doesn't have anything of yours, and yet and you try to claim from him things that you know you don't have entitled to. You make him swear. So that's deception. Then the El Beis Hanishba will go to the house of the person who swore Bishmi L'Shaka. If somebody swore false to my name, I'll go punish him. Kimashmoy, literally. The Lana Beterbeise, the Kalose, I'll go to his house, the Chilasai, will destroy him, as Eizavana, who managed to come teach you. Dvadim she'ein Eishamayim Mechal, I say. Things that fire and water generally cannot destroy. But if you swear false, it's going to destroy you. And if he says, look, okay, you know what? I'm really scared. Forget it. I'm not going to swear. I'm happy to pay. I don't want to get involved in the shvur. We right away send him away. We don't delay at all. We don't want him to change his mind. We don't want the shvur happen here. And we don't pay. He said, I don't care. I'm innocent. I want to swear. We continue to intimidate him. We stand there, we say, zealous at each other. Depart from this tent because there's a Russia here. We're calling the person prepared to swear as a Russia, even though he might be innocent. When we do finally make him swear, and we already had before, we tell him, don't think you can trick us and you make up words, and then when you make it sure you think you're getting away with it. Don't be sly. You're swearing an hour understanding. We find by Moshe because he's being thrown when he made Eden swear. And he said to them, "Do you should know? I'm not relying on your words." You're swearing the way I understand it. Remember, it says in the pasuk, not only with you am I making a bond, even those that are here and those that are not here. All those are here. Future generations. The Gadim who are sitting this guy, future converts. How do they know they're involved in this Shavuot? Now, this Shavuot happened in Arvis Maya, but we're saying that it also happened at Har Sinai. It says, even those that are not here. Only we know is mitzvahs that were accepted in Har Sinai. Mitzvahs are Chadash, future mitzvahs. How do you know those accepted? They accepted all of the mitzvahs, even mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, which we'll talk more about tomorrow. Have a good day tomorrow.